Hello and welcome to the Oakland County Megacast. I'm Tyler Kieft in the studios of our flagship station, Civic Center TV, and 89.3 Lakes FM. In addition, today, as always, we're on Birmingham area municipal access, also on Comcast Channel 15 and AT&T Channel 99, as well as 88.1 WBFH, The Biff. And today, we're on the Facebook page of my co-host every day on the show, Ronnie Dahl, live from her home studio as well. Ronnie.
Tyler, it's great to be here on this Tuesday. I'm just about to post on my Facebook page because I have a coworker today that is sleeping under the desk. So usually at about this time, my husband takes our dog Trixie out for a walk, and then they come in. She has her breakfast, and then gets like a bully stick to keep her quiet. But then she'll run upstairs with him. But no, she's like sleeping underneath the desk. But anyway, it's great to have everyone with us here on this Tuesday. Tyler, how was your drive in this morning?
To put it optimistically, it was terrible. It's not that the roads were all that bad. The roads were not great by any means. But it's snow. It's Michigan. It's the end of January. We know how to do this. Why is it so tough? Stay within the 2-track. Don't drive like a moron, and everybody's happy. But instead, I leave at 8:30, 8:40, which is usually more than enough time, even in bad traffic or in weather conditions, to get here in a timely manner. And I still got here 10 minutes late. That's right. Report me. Go ahead.
But you are right. I will say, I remember the first year or so I was with ATF and the federal government, because, if you work in news, you don't get a day off.
Oh, no.
Holidays? No, you're working. Guess what? Snowstorms? Coming into work. Bad weather, you're coming into work. And I remember one of the first, I think it was like some crazy holiday, like Columbus Day or whatever. I showed up at the office and people were like, I was like, where is everyone? And they're like, we're off. It's a federal holiday. I'm like, what? Like, I didn't even think about those days. But then we would get snow cancellations or snow delays. Hey, you have a delay of so many hours today due to the snow. It was like being back in school. I was like, oh my gosh, we get snow days.
Apparently,
awesome.
Alcohol, tobacco, firearms, and explosives. Nobody's moving that during inclement weather. Right.
No, and really, when you think about it, it kind of made sense because look, in news, you're going to work. It doesn't matter. If they have to have someone pick you up in a big truck, they will, because you're making it to work. But when you really kind of look at it, so many people in the federal government, you have basically work cars. They're called G-Rides, your government ride. And if you wreck them or you're in an accident, it takes so much effort to get them repaired, but also to get them replaced if there's a bad accident as well. So really, at the end of the day, so if people could safely work from home, then it was encouraged for them to do so. Now, of course, if there was on the law enforcement side, if there was a big op or something of that nature, then considerations were put in place. But for the support staff, we got snow days. It was great.
Yeah, that sounds fantastic. Luckily now we're at a point here at the Green Media Center where whether there is school in session or not, our area of the parking lot is going to be plowed anytime that there is snow, where the Cable Commission generously went through the same company that plows through the township offices, so they come right to us right after that. But there have been times in the past where schools had snow days, and we, of course, there are no snow days here at Civic Center TV, not even on weekends. There are no snow days. And so there are times where the parking lot would be full of snow. And I remember just not last year, but 2019 November, there was a big snowstorm. And I remember I spent a few hours in the afternoon digging a 2-track out of the parking lot because there was so much snow and there was no plowing. Now that's the good thing. That's the one good thing about virtual learning today is bye-bye snow days. Hello, snowplow.
There you go. But Tyler, too, yesterday we took our dog over to Dodge Park because of the snow. But one of the things I just said to my husband, I had an appointment at 1:30 this afternoon that got canceled because of the weather. So I said, hey, we can go out and play. And he's like, yippee, because I saw this video of someone teaching their dog to sled. And I was like, I think our dog Trixie would love to do that. I mean, you have a dog named Trixie, she's got to do tricks, right?
Of course.
I think she would love to learn how to sled. My husband thinks I'm crazy, but I'm like, no, we're going sledding with the dog. Get used to it. It's your day off, and that's what you're going to be doing.
Right. You know, you're a sports reporter. What do you teach the dog some sports? And there you go. You got a report. You got a snow sledding dog. All of a sudden, a dog is going to end up being an Olympic sledder, and there's your story. So, making a productive day off for Woody. Congratulations, Ronnie.
I can't wait for you to try to teach your cats to sled.
That sounds like a terrible idea, but I'll try.
Hey, so while we're speaking of sports, let's go ahead and jump into today's headlines, because really sports is dominating the headlines. Let them play Michigan. They're preparing for legal action. So it's an ongoing struggle right now for winter contact sports so people remember, I think there was a lot of kind of overshadowing of this issue with the governor's press conference talking about the reopening of some of the bars and the restaurants. But what people didn't realize, the new restrictions that have been placed on some of the high school sports. So last week, the governor and the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services announced a continued ban on indoor contact sports that would run through the 21st of February instead of the 1st. So the ban prevents boys and girls basketball, ice hockey, wrestling, competitive cheer, and frustrated parents, athletes, coaches, and administrators have come together to form Let Them Play Michigan. Facebook group now has over 27,000 members. They're promoting a rally that's going to be held this Saturday at the Capitol in Lansing. It's going to take place at noon. Now, the group has also gone a step beyond what they've done in previous events, and they have actually hired a lawyer out of Lansing, and he has sent a letter to the leader of the MDHHS urging her to revisit the decision to extend the ban past the February 1st date that was initially posted. So the letter cites the pilot testing program used by the MHSSA to finish football, volleyball, and girls swimming and diving that provided 99.8% negative test results through over 30,000 tests. So behind the scenes, so many of us were focused on the restaurants being allowed to reopen and the curfews, but this kind of slid under the radar. Now everyone is going, hey, wait, MHSAA, they were taken off guard. They said they didn't know about these new restrictions until they watched the press conference along with everyone else. But we've had some pretty big people, Tyler, come out in support of trying to shorten this length back to the February 1st date. Those include, Coach Campy over at Oakland University, but also the president or the leader of the Detroit Public School Department as well. So there are some big people and some big names behind this telling the governor, we're not understanding this. And if you're going to do this, we want to know why. The governor basically is just saying, hey, there's a variant out there and we want to watch it right now.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of extra caution for the variant from the UK that is in the state of Michigan that is much more highly contagious than the COVID-19 that we've seen since March throughout the U.S. and the world. That being said, football, volleyball, girls swimming and diving set a great example this fall of how to operate a sports season safely. As you mentioned in the article on civiccentertv.com/coronavirus, they had a pilot testing program that brought back 99.8% negative test results through 30,000 tests. It's a pretty big sample size. That being said, other than football, there aren't really any contact sports in the fall season. Volleyball's relatively distanced. Girls swimming and diving is not a contact sport by any means. And so it's a little bit different of a situation than in basketball and other indoor sports in the winter. That being said, do you have a situation where you can require athletes, much like you did with football, a contact sport of all contact sports, to wear masks during play? Or do you do what the NBA does and other leagues have done and require masks when you're not in play, and then those on the court can be unmasked, and then you just are doing your best to limit the amount of time that players are on the court with other players and exposed potentially to COVID-19?
Yeah, the interesting thing about this as well, Tyler, is read between the lines. And there's an issue here between the governor and her previous director for the Department of Health and Human Services, Gordon. We talked about that yesterday, and his quick, leaving the department. His resignation from the department, and the governor being grilled on that yesterday, and also offered no real explanation. So look, I'll tell you right now, I was a member of the government, and that means that there was a fight there that they don't want to be public. So it'll be interesting to see if that comes out and if this has anything to do with it, or some of the other restrictions, because of course the argument is, but you're letting bars and restaurants open as well. But on top of that, and kind of in connection with this too, so there's a coalition of University of Michigan student athletes. They've started now an online petition to try to fight the shutdown. So on Saturday, of course, Michigan announced it is pausing all practices and games until further notice, and up to 14 days because of several positive cases of the COVID-19 variant B.1.1.7, which we know by now transmits about 50% more easily. The coalition of student athletes believe the measure taken to mitigate the virus, they're just simply too steep. So meanwhile, Christian Hubaker, he's a member of the men's track and field team. He created an online petition in hopes of getting the shutdown lifted. And there's a link to that online petition for those that may be interested on our website. It's embedded in the article. Just go to coronavirus or civiccentertv.com, click on the coronavirus tab. So he's saying basically, based on the department's testing policies, placing healthy students in quarantine is unnecessary and excessive. Placing the entirety of student athletes in a mandated quarantine instead of working it on a team-by-team basis is unfair to the athletes who have followed all protocols necessary to compete and to have no contact with the confirmed cases. These student athletes have gone above and beyond in order to earn the right to have a season in the midst of the pandemic. You have to remember too, these student athletes are tested on such a regular schedule. So imagine that you have tested negative, but you're also being quarantined. And it's not just against practice, really. It's against them trying to live on campus as well, and how they interact with other individuals and go about their studies on campus as well. So you kind of understand their argument there too. It's going to be a tough haul here for the governor. She needs to start explaining what she is saying is the science and data behind this. Give it to us. Make it public. It's our data. If you know something that you're not saying, you need to start sharing it, because the backlash is growing right now.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of backlash toward the governor on this particular issue, and really on the most recent decisions being made regarding battling COVID-19. While they may very well, and I do believe are being done with good reason and in an abundance of caution, there are a lot of questions, and people do want to know, what aren't you telling us? Where is the science? Show it to us, so that we can be on the same page as you with this, instead of just taking your word for it. Because at this point, I don't think many people are necessarily taking her word for it, especially in the athletics community. And in terms of the outbreak at the University of Michigan, sure, there may be a situation where they can divide. Certain teams need to be shut down temporarily while they quarantine from COVID-19, while others can still be operable if there are a mass number of negative tests, and if they are remaining in unshared facilities on campus and doing their part to prevent spread within the athletics department, maybe that is a possibility. But at the moment, they're going through these precautions in an abundance of caution because of the COVID-19 variant being in Washtenaw County and being on the campus of the University of Michigan, and wanting to make sure that it doesn't spread any further.
And people, we get that. We're
Yeah.
10 months into
Right.
this, Tyler. And on top of that, so when we go back to high school sports, we're one of only 3 states. And, at this point in time, the governor, like her not answering questions about Gordon, if you guys had a fallout, tell us. We had a fallout. We are adults. But
Right.
at the end of the day, your salary and his salary and all the salaries of all the you people making these decisions are paid by us. So just be open and transparent. And if you're talking about transparency, be transparent.
Yeah.
Bottom line, there is some type of issue going on there that she doesn't want. Look, I've worked in government long enough. I've worked as a reporter long enough to know there's something going on there. Just tell us, because it's going to come out. We know it's going to come out, so
Yeah.
share it with the people. And, if you have the science and data, share the science and data. Quit just telling us you have the science and data. We're tired of it. We're 10 months into it. We understand. Mask up, be socially distanced, which she wasn't when she was in DC. And, the travel mandate goes into effect today as well. We get it. We're 10 months into this. We know. With that too, going on to the next thing, because we're talking kind of about schools and education. Michigan Public Schools want to skip out of the standardized test. So for the second year in a row, COVID-19 may cancel the M-STEP standardized test given to Michigan Public School students. The state superintendent, Michael Rice, requested a waiver from the U.S. Department of Education for what is typically an annual federally mandated test, citing an inability to give standardized tests when nothing about the school year has been standard. Got a very good point there. So without uniform testing conditions and appropriate test security measures, assessment results will misrepresent the achievement. That is according to Rice, and he wrote to the acting U.S. Secretary of Education, Phil Rosenfeld. Rice's request to skip the test again this year was denied this past fall, though, by Betsy DeVos, who, of course, was the Republican that used to hold that position. Michigan students, though, keep in mind, would still need to take a benchmark test in the spring. Those scores, though, are only used to measure individual student progress, not to compare schools or for teacher evaluations. And those tests aren't standardized. They vary, district to district. But on top of that, I mean, there's a good argument on this on both sides. Some people say, wait, we need those tests to understand the gaps on a federal level so that we can get the money and try to help these students where they need to be. But on the other side, and this is where the dialogue changes, are you going to be held to the same standards that were put in place pre-pandemic? Because we all know students are learning differently in different levels right now.
And another thing that goes into that is how do you proctor these tests, because students are virtual. They're not coming into the schools. They're going to need, and in order to manage the integrity of these tests and make sure that they are accurate and that people are not taking these tests at home and potentially looking up answers, you need to have some sort of system there which would best be operated in person in the schools, which at this point in time, we aren't having a mass of students in schools, and navigating these tests with a large number of students would be arguably tougher than just keeping them away from doing these tests altogether. But that being said, with these tests, especially the non-mandatory, non-standardized tests that are just a benchmark to see and evaluate how the students are progressing academically, that could be something that's arguably even more important this year, with a lot of students struggling to learn at the same rate virtually as they would in person, and maybe others even excelling virtually versus in person. There could be a lot of information there that could be helpful to school districts, certainly to the government for funding and for other means in education going forward that may be lost without having these tests in place.
So many different facets to this. And the great thing about our show, Tyler, is always that we're able to bring you some of these interviews in a long interview format. So we'll try to get someone on from the Department of Education a little bit later in the week. But for now, we're going to take a quick break here on the Megacast. And when we come back, we'll be joined with the president for the Plymouth Community Chamber of Commerce. This is the Oakland County Megacast.
Michigan, we still need to stay careful because we don't want to go backwards, back to where we started. So keep standing 6 feet apart, keep wearing a mask in public, and if you have symptoms, talk to a healthcare provider about getting tested. To move forward, let's all do our part. So stay careful. Michigan.gov/coronavirus.
Hi, I'm Dr. Faust, the Medical Director for the Oakland County Health Division. The most important thing you can do to prevent the spread of illness is to wash your hands thoroughly and often. Follow these 6 easy steps every time you wash your hands. Step 1, turn on the sink and wet your hands with warm water. Step 2, apply soap to your hands and lather between your fingers, under your nails, and the front and back of your hands and wrists. Step 3, wash your hands by scrubbing them together for at least 20 seconds. Step 4, rinse your hands with warm, clean water. And step 5, dry your hands with a clean cloth towel, a paper towel, or hot air blow dryer. If you're using a cloth towel, make sure to change it often. For handheld faucets, turn off the water using a paper towel instead of your bare hand. Step 6, if you're using a paper towel, throw it away. Practice healthy habits like washing your hands after coughing or sneezing into them to keep you and others healthy. Go to oakgov.com/health or call Nurse on Call at 1-800-848-5533 to learn more.
We so appreciate your time on this Tuesday, this very snowy Tuesday outdoors. So, the one thing that is probably good about some of the crazy weather, the winter weather that we're having right now, it's been a very mild winter though. We all know it for Michigan standards, right? But the good thing about this, so many people are already working from home. That means less people are out on the streets, but does that mean less people are going out to visit our businesses and going out to visit our restaurants? With us now, we want to welcome in Wes Graff. He's the president for the Plymouth Community Chamber of Commerce, one of my favorite downtown areas. Wes, thank you so much for being with us.
Thanks for having me today.
So tell us, when you were in the middle of a pandemic, but also a winter storm, does that impact how things are operating there in the city of Plymouth?
Well, I would say, yeah, I mean, a winter storm always will, and a Tuesday will also slow us down too. It's not exactly the prime day for people to be out. But with that said, yeah, I mean, the pandemic obviously is, for us, our restaurants, I will give them a lot of credit. They are doing the outdoor dining. And I've driven around other communities, and I mean, our folks are really trying hard. I mean, I've seen, we don't allow, they're not allowed to be in the streets due to our traffic patterns here, but they're on the sidewalks. For those who are fortunate to have parking lots, they're doing an amazing job. I mean, Stella's Black Dog Tavern down here put up a whole new back covering, and they added a big heating system to it. I mean, they're thinking beyond the pandemic because this is going to be with us for a while. But I'll tell you, drive around and people every night are there for dinner. It's not enough to support the restaurants, but it gets them. They're giving it a real try right now.
And too, because when we're looking at this, so I live in Kegel Harbor, so it's on the other side of what you guys are going through. But I do go to Plymouth and Northville as well. And you look at some of these businesses, number one, some just because of how they're located or situated, they can't really take advantage of that outdoor environment and some of the ease of the restrictions too that the cities have been working with them on. But on top of that too, when we're looking, with the weather conditions here in the state of Michigan, how long can they survive?
They surprise me in a lot of ways. I mean, obviously they're on reduced staff and reduced costs. Their building owners are helping them out with rents or deferring rents. So that's helping a lot. But we're going to, people need to get vaccinated. We're going to need to get them back in business this summer. From what I'm hearing, slowly over the summer, it's going slower than we had hoped. But I think, everything I'm hearing says over the summer, we could be in shape to actually get back to a somewhat normal by midsummer to late summer, and I'm hoping by the fall. But there'll still be some restrictions on us at that point. But anything we can do to help them out, I got to tell you, any takeout people can do is tremendous. My wife and I ate out last week, and she does not like the cold, and we had a wonderful time. The heaters were on, and everybody, if you haven't tried it, it's not bad. Bring blankets, layer up, and the food stayed warm too.
I will. I'm about BYOB. Bring your own blanket, right? That's kind of the new motto now. But I also wonder, because I think people think, oh, some of these restaurants do have outdoor patios and outdoor, like we're seeing the garden sheds are very popular right now as well. But keep in mind, most of these restaurants have from 2 to maybe 6 to 8 at most. Could you imagine running your business with only 8 tables and you're turning them like maybe once an hour?
Or maybe once, really it's about once to twice a night at the most, because people are not hanging. I mean, they're not, once it gets cold enough, they'll come out for dinner. They won't stay out all night unless they're just out for drinks. And even then it's quick in and out, because there is a temperature issue after a good hour or so.
But on top of it, like I think about the business of just the individual coming in, because I'm not a planner, but I also had a situation last week. So my husband works from home as well, and I have a smart car, and I happened to take my smart car to get my hair done, and he texted me and he said, hey, don't come home to this point in time. And I'm like, that's like 40 minutes. Where am I supposed to go? Right. So I'm in a smart car that I haven't charged, that then the reserve light comes on. So I can't turn on the heat. So I'm calling my friends. Can I come over? Can I come over? No one's home. Normally I would pop into a restaurant and maybe grab a dinner or a drink. And you can't, like, I was stranded for a little bit. But on top of that, though, you're looking at the businesses, and that is cumulative, right? Of these little pop-ins of people who don't plan. Because the one thing when you're doing an igloo, you've got to plan for it.
Yep. You do. And people are not out and about as much, obviously, right now. At Christmas, people were really good about shopping locally, so that helped. And these are always slow months to begin with. So, I mean, these are going to be struggling months. The hard part is they didn't have the income coming into it. But so far, we haven't had any new closures. So we're really fortunate. We're going to wait and see how long they can hold up. The new PPP loans and the assistance of the government is essential. It's getting the workers are getting expanded unemployment. And so that's going to help a lot to get them through. But at some point, we got to get them back to work. We also have to get, I mean, obviously, we're going to have to, it has to be done safely. We can't just do it because we have to. It has to be done, and which I think is why vaccines are so important for us to get to that 70% threshold so we can get ourselves going again.
Yeah, but Wes, with that too, if we could talk, these businesses, I feel like most of them are going above and beyond, because the last thing they want is an outbreak associated with their establishment. So they really are taking these extra precautions, knowing that, and going into the winter months as well. What else can be done? And we're coming up on February 1st and the reopening. Does this mean maybe hope? Is that hope, do you think? Or are we really anticipating there are going to be more closures and restrictions in our future as well?
Well, if these variants turn out to be what they are, we could be back to it again. I did a really interesting, you were talking in your last segment about numbers. So my chairman and I are playing around with some numbers. Michigan right now sits at 0.1% per 100,000 residents less in death than our neighboring state of Ohio, and I think 2 points less than Indiana, and somewhere between that for Wisconsin, who all have similar openings than we do. They also have higher hospitalization rates and higher case totals. So if Michigan has 10 million residents, that approximates to about 60 less deaths or families planning funerals. So the governor obviously puts a high premium on that. It also, those states have a 1% lower unemployment rate. So these other states are seeing an economic benefit. That's a tough equation for anybody to have to figure out. But when you start looking at numbers, I think that's what the numbers really mean, and some tough decisions that public officials have to make when they're deciding. Because anytime you move that needle, that means you're going to have some more hospitalizations and more deaths until we get the vaccines. Because we've done a wonderful job of improving at taking care of patients. I lost my own mother from COVID back in May, and what happened with her and how she was treated versus what happens now is amazing. I mean, nothing I think could have been done to save her, but it just shows you that there's, we've come a long way, but we still got to take those final steps. We still have to wear masks and wash our hands, and and please, for people, you want to keep your restaurants open and you want to keep the stores open, please stay in your bubble. Go to dinner with people who go to dinner with people who are in your bubble. Don't go outside of that. When I see lots of people going together, you drop your mask, you eat. If you're not within your bubble, you're really going to be upping the chances when the variant increases. So that's our big request, is try and stay within your bubble when you go out to eat and you go out around town.
Oh, Wes, my condolences on your mother. It's so hard to lose a parent. I lost my mother as well, not to COVID, but it's still not an easy transition. And with that too, when that's the one thing that I'm kind of interested in when we talk about the bubble, because while they're asking people when they're renting these sheds and this, that, and the other, you really kind of need to have a group of people to go to help support the costs, because some places are requiring minimums to be able to, even be able to utilize those entities. And we understand that, right? Because the businesses have a cost association as well. But on top of that, like, if I'm going to do 6 people in my family, we're doing a Sunday dinner, right? Like, I'm not going out to a restaurant where it's going to cost me so much. So we know people are not staying within their cohorts per se.
Right.
They're coming together because that's a way for the friends to come together. So with that too, do you think that these sheds and these outdoor igloos and stuff, will they continue? And are they even effective, really?
Well, I think they're very effective if you stay within your cohort. I mean, once they say, go with 2, right now you're not supposed to actually technically go if it's not, it's supposed to be from 2 different households. And hopefully those are 2 households that are somewhat in a cohort together, or an understanding of, how they handle COVID, so that they're not potential victims of it. I mean, it's really tough right now. I mean, but we just have to, if we insist on going with like 5, 6, 8 different people, we're really upping our odds. And if you want to keep our restaurants open, go out and use them, but please use them with people who are in your cohort, because then they will stay open. We'll keep our numbers low. Really,
Wes Graff here with us on the Megacast. He's the president for the Plymouth Community Chamber of Commerce, and really one of the best walkable communities that we have here. We have so much focus right now on the restaurants, but there are so many other businesses that are directly impacted on this. And I think about your community, Plymouth, because it is a walkable community. If I'm not going to dinner, like I would normally, or I would go get my hair done there, and then I would go to the home store. And then maybe I would say, hey, to my girlfriend who lives in the neighborhood, let's meet and let's have lunch and a drink. So when you're taking out that, it's not just the restaurants, it's these other businesses that could be suffering as well.
Yeah, there's safe ways to do that though, too, if you think about it. I mean, I've had people over and we keep our distance from each other. I've been out with people. Plymouth's a great walkable town. Our park is still available. A lot of people will go get coffee and then get together in the park and sit at a distance. It's really great to see. Or they'll sit on 2 different park benches. And you can still walk around town. You can wear your masks when you're within 6 feet. I mean, there's a lot of ways to do it. If we can do that though, for all our businesses, we can keep them open. And that's really got to be our goal, because we're all in this together. The restaurants are frustrated because I'm doing everything right, and they're always the ones, because the masks drop. It's the most vulnerable place just about that we're allowed to go. But if we could just do our part, all of us, because they're doing their part. They really are. They're spaced 6 feet apart. They're doing the right things. We need to help them out and do the right things too. And we can make this work for everybody and get our economy rolling. Because it's not just them. I mean, we have fitness facilities are really hurting right now. Obviously, any of our theater groups. Unfortunately, the government's providing some assistance for businesses that end up being a higher probability of transmission. But I beg everyone, just do your part and you'll help us all out, and we'll get out of this together.
It really is about we're in this together. So Wes, I'll have to show you though, because when we talk about the mask, my sister came up with a mask and it was really for our family. And it's like a double layer one it's 2 layers. So you peel it back, but then there's a bottom layer that still covers your nose and then you can eat and drink out of it. So I'll have to send you one. Cool. So that kind of takes out like the mask thing and while of course it doesn't, eliminate all the exposure from COVID-19, it definitely is that second layer. So when people say you have to take off your mask, well, no, actually you don't, but I'll send you one. With that though, I have to ask you about one of my favorite events there in the city of Plymouth, is the huge ice festival how's it changing this year? Is it going on, first of all?
It is. It's going to be on Valentine's Day weekend. COVID has changed everything. But we're a very COVID conscious community. I think we've handled it as well as we can. We don't create. So what this is there's about 60 smaller sculptures that will be around town, 1 to 2 blocks of ice. I think it's going to be 1 3-block sculpture. In the park, there'll be some interactive ice, which is that, kids can, could get on for a second and sit on it or something. And if they're wearing gloves, it should be okay. It'll be monitored. So the idea of this is to keep people moving so that you don't get that 15 minutes directly with somebody. And then it'll give you a chance to either pick up something to eat while you're here, stop in a store. They are going to do a little contest with passports. You can go into the different stores. You might be patient because they are at 30% capacity. But we want to do something for our downtown and get that spirit back. And it'll be great also just to see the ice sculptures back again. Even the small ones are very well done, and I really encourage people to come out and take a look at them.
Well, the good thing about that event is it is mainly outdoors. And so people come dressed for the weather as well. And so just know that dressing for the weather also includes maybe possibly eating and drinking outdoors as well this year.
Right, or get a cup of coffee, get something to go and take it with you, but it's a 24-hour event. So, I mean, if you're so up at 2:00 in the morning and you want to see ice, come on down. We're happy to have you come over here and take a look. So the ice will be up all the time.
I will tell you, the ice sculptures are amazing. I've been lucky enough to cover it in previous years as a reporter for who knows? I think I was at Fox 2. I was doing that crazy weekend morning show. But you want to talk about an artist, to watch these people take a block of ice with chainsaws and turn it in to these amazing pieces of art. It really is something that you would appreciate going forward. Hey, Wes, great to have you with us. Anything maybe I didn't ask that you wanted to include before we let you go?
No, I think we talked about, I think the big thing to hopefully everyone can remember is just, we're all in this together. We can make the difference together if we just give this a try. And I encourage you to come down, enjoy the Ice Festival, enjoy Plymouth, play it safe. And we're all going to get back on track here, hopefully by late to midsummer.
So again, the Ice Festival, though, just so people don't, if you don't know, is not until Valentine's weekend, February 12th. Through the 14th. If you haven't been, you want to go. And let's hope we have the super cold, snowy weather that we're having today as well.
Absolutely. Let's have those temps. Actually, it's best if it's a little cloudy, upper 20s. The best weather for us.
I used to do weather, so I'll do a weather dance for you.
Sounds good.
Wes Graff with us here on the Megacast. He's the president for the Plymouth Community Chamber of Commerce. We're going to take a quick break here on the Megacast. When we come back, though, we're going to shift the conversation to a bit more serious one when we bring in Ellis Stafford. He's the deputy director for the Detroit Crime Commission. This is the Oakland County Megacast.
Michigan, the coronavirus pandemic has put us all to the test. And now it's time to put COVID-19 to the test. As we move forward, testing will be critical. We encourage anyone who has reason to get tested to do so, those with symptoms and those without. If you are leaving home and going back to work, get tested. If you think you may have COVID-19 or you've been exposed recently through family, friends, or coworkers, get tested. Our test locator tool can help you find the right testing site that fits your needs. Even if you're looking for easy access with no cost, no prescription, and no appointment necessary, we've got you covered. Help Michigan move forward, not backward. To find a testing site or learn more, visit michigan.gov/coronavirus test. A message from the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services.
The only way to beat COVID-19 is to face it.
You can't get too comfortable.
You can't forget the danger.
Wear the mask.
Wear the mask.
Wear the mask. Wash your hands.
Keep a safe distance.
Especially in the next few months.
You know we'll get back to normal.
We'll get back to normal.
We'll get back to normal.
Someday.
But not yet.
Not yet.
Not yet.
But not yet.
But not yet.
Consider virtual gatherings for the holidays.
Curbside food orders.
Grocery delivery.
And shopping local.
Shop local.
And especially shopping local.
Let's beat this virus. We can if we face it together.
Together.
Together. Together.
Together.
Together.
Together.
Together. Together.
Together. Together.
For the latest information, visit oakgov.com/COVID.
Great to have you with us here on the Megacast. I'm Ronnie Dahl, Tyler Keefe, holding down things back in the studio there at West Bloomfield. Just as a reminder, though, for those that maybe have missed some of our previous interviews, you can always catch them. Go on to civiccentertv.com. We will post full interviews along with the full Megacast as well, but you can also, if you just missed one individual that you wanted to hear from, just check out their interview as well. And again, that's civiccentertv.com. And again, thank you, Birmingham Area Municipal Access, 89.3 Lakes FM, 88.1 FM The Biff. If you are on cable, channel 15 on Comcast, 99 on AT&T, thank you for tuning in to the Megacast. With Ellis Stafford, you've never been on our show before, but you're probably like, what? That's what makes us the Megacast. We share this story on TV, radio, and the internet.
You're right, Ronnie. I've never been on the Megacast, but you've been a friend of ours in the Crime Commission for a long time. So where you're at, I'm at home.
And I love that you matched your jacket with your background.
I try, my wife did this. I probably would have been wearing some camouflage or something. Just how guys are. We have no taste.
Oh my gosh, Ellis, I will have to say, when my husband started doing the sports at home, I was like, what? No, you can't do that. You got to do this. Wait, I have a projector. Like, we're big Halloween people, and we bought this projector years ago where we projected like Halloween onto our garage door. I go, we can project your Sportswork logo behind you. And he's looking at me like, I'm like, no, I'm going to make you look good.
Yes,
That's
yes, you
what
do.
we do, right?
Yes, you do, and thank you very much.
With that, Ellis, though, you know what? You're an amazing part of our community, but I think a lot of people don't understand or realize what the Detroit Crime Commission actually does. For those that haven't heard of it, fill us in.
Oh, it's my pleasure. We've been around for 10 years. It's been a decade. I don't know if you remember when we first met, I had hair. No, I didn't. That's a lie. That's a lie. But the Crime Commission was formed, like I said, 10 years ago by some folks who wanted to improve safety in our community, in our region. So they came together and they asked back then a special agent in charge at FBI, Andy Arena, could this be done? How could it be done? What's the best way to do it? He gave them some advice. Basically, long and short of it, the Crime Commission, our name is a misnomer. We have intel analysts working out of the Pontiac office with the Oakland County Sheriff's Department. We have an analyst over in Battle Creek. We're working with Lansing Police Department, Flint Police Department. Our office is actually in Southfield, so the name Detroit is a misnomer. But what we do as far as crime and safety is not. We try to bring things forward that the public safety as a whole, when I say as a whole, I'm talking the community also. It's not just the cops and the police and EMS. It's all of us working together. And so we try to fill some of those holes that exist in that whole public safety tapestry. And I'll give you a real easy one. Anybody that ever watched TV, I always see the detective say to a witness, let's get them to the safe house. That's BS. A safe house doesn't exist for local and state law enforcement. There is no safe houses. If you witness to a murder in and around the city of Detroit, the only thing we can do is hope you don't get shot and killed before you get on the stand and get cross-examined. Well, that's a hole that needed to be filled. The Crime Commission went out and found funds to fill that hole. So now we have what we call a safeguard program that is available to prosecutors to offer that witness temporary relocation until they can testify and be cross-examined. So that's just one of the holes. We do intelligence analysis, but for this particular megacast, our focus is on human trafficking. We do something unique. We combat human trafficking in a different way. If you recall, on the movies, you'll get like 6 or 8 detectives hiding in the closet. One of the detectives poses as a John, and then all 6 or 8 of them run out. You're under arrest. That type of investigation is cost prohibitive. It's time consuming. What we do is, because we have formally trained intelligence analysts, we leverage technology to go from home base to second base with that criminal investigation. We all know that human traffickers, although pandemic is upon us, human trafficking hasn't stopped. It's still continuing, both in labor and sex. And because we are a kind of salacious society, our mind tends to go to the sexual part of it. But there's labor part too, but in either part, both parts, it is still slavery, a modern form of slavery.
I'm so glad that we are having you on the show, because when you're talking about that as well, there's so many facets about this. And again, thank you to you and your team for what you're doing. And people don't understand that sometimes there are a lot of politics involved in law enforcement. But not only that, despite the amount of money and effort and resources, there are gaps in the process as well. And so to have a crime commission and people on your team, you're vital to really the success of trying to combat some of these issues that are going on. And why is it that civilians, such as people, but you have a law enforcement background, yes, but also why are people in a civilian capacity able to be able to bring a huge, you're able to bring something to the table that maybe sworn law enforcement currently aren't able to do? Why is that?
Well, you have, like you said, several factors. Part of it is political. I always say that everybody in this country that carries a badge and a gun works for somebody who don't. And that person who don't makes the rules. They decide what the priorities are of that public safety agency. That's one reason. You have inflexible government. You have lack of expertise. You have lack of funding. So all of these come together to make it so that public safety can't do all the things the public think they could do and that they wish they could do. So where we come along, I was with MSP for 25 years, state police. Andy was with the FBI, retired as special agent in charge. For those who don't know, the counterpart to the FBI in the state of Michigan is the state police, the criminal investigation division. It could be named something different, but Andy was my counterpart on the federal side. So we knew a lot of things, a lot of holes that needed to be filled. And instead of waiting for government to do it, the folks that founded the Crime Commission, me and Andy, we said, hey, let's get together and try to help out, try to kick in and help out. We still had some gas in the tank. We still had something to offer. And so we decided to offer things in a way that nobody else could, and where that public and private partnership really could add value. That's what we did. That's what we're doing. It's intelligence. It's safe house funding. It is analytical analysis. Let me give you a quick example, if I may. There was a time where Governor Schneider was looking at closing schools in the city of Detroit. What the Crime Commission did, and all our analysts have their master's degrees in intelligence analysis. They did an analysis of all the gangs in Detroit. And if you closed a certain school, where would those folks affiliated with that gang go? And if they went to a certain school. Would that cause an increase in violence in the school because you're putting two rival gangs in close proximity? And we presented that to Governor Snyder's office. For whatever reason, I like to say we had something to do with it. They never decided to close schools. But again, it's a facet of analytics that wasn't being considered in the decision-making process. The Crime Commission was able to do that. Again, we don't work for anybody to carry a badge and a gun, or who don't.
You know what? That makes you so valuable in this conversation, but also very well respected due to your backgrounds in law enforcement as well. But it really is about trying to bring the community together with the law enforcement agencies as well. And I think that you guys are able to bridge that gap. And I will say, I'm kind of like you. When I joined ATF, I was hearing these terms like she's pro media, not pro law enforcement. And I was like, who does pro law enforcement even mean? Like, you know, I'm pro people being safe. I've worked on the streets of Detroit, and when someone cannot walk to the grocery store, that is a shame. When people are hiding in their homes, that is a shame. And there are no politics involved in that. And I was astounded. And I will say a bit, do I want to say disgusted? But yeah, I'm going to say disgusted, the level of politics involved in law enforcement. And what I love about your agency is you're able to say, we're not political. We came from this, but we're going to take our intelligence and our training to be able to solve some of these problems in our community. So one
Absolutely.
of those, you know, I've done a series of stories about human trafficking. And when it's easy to tell the story, like occasionally as a reporter, you get the story, right? And it's like, oh, it's here. Or as a police officer, because so many of my friends are in law enforcement and they get the story and it's one case. Mm-hmm. But it really takes agencies such as yours to take that step back and look at it in a bigger picture to try to understand what's really happening. And that's really only when we could try to tackle these issues and these problems.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Working together is how we bring change, how we free.
We have to work together. I'm looking, my microphone might have. Can you still hear me, Ronnie?
We can still hear you. And don't worry, that's okay. Because that's some of the issues. Like technically we do Zoom every day and issues go and dogs bark and, you know, things happen.
Well, I'm glad you can still hear me. But what I was saying is we do need to work together to fill some of those holes. Our human trafficking, the way we add value to the effort, I'm going to get a little wonky here. There's a reason why the FBI just can't go in your email and look at your email for no reason. You know that, Ronnie, because you were with ATF. Same thing with them. They can't do it. They need probable cause or reasonable suspicion, some kind of criminal predicate, because they're federal government agent. They're a government entity. So we all have privacy. The Crime Commission we're nonprofit. We're 501c3. We're not bound by this thing called 28 CFR Part 23, which prohibits law enforcement from looking at your stuff without a criminal predicate. Everything we do is anybody can do. We just got some really smart people to do it. And what we understand and realize is that human trafficking, like any other product, is a commodity that needs to be sold. I need to let the buyer know that I have what they're looking for, whether it's subtle or gross. They need to know that they can come to me for it. So what the Crime Commission does through our analysts is that we capture and we look at those communication nodes to see who's selling and try to identify the sellers. Then we give that information to law enforcement. And we use technology developed by MIT, couple of smart kids. And I say kids because I'm like 56 now. Some smart young folks. We use their technology, our master's degree intelligence analysts, to find human traffickers because they're still there. They're still operating here in and around Michigan. There's no doubt about it. We see it all the time. And we give that information to our law enforcement partners for them to act on. We've had some success. In fact, recently, if you recall, Troy PD did a raid of a massage parlor. What they did not know and what we knew and shared with them that there was a second parlor. It wasn't just the one. again, leveraging technology to help our public safety partners make us all a little safer. And our fundraiser coming up at the end of the month, that's what that fundraising does. Helps us pay for that technology, so it helps us all.
I love that you mentioned that, because number one, we have to understand when exactly what you said. Detroit Crime Commission is not about Detroit, it's about all of us. And also on top of that, we need to understand, and I think the one thing that has come out with COVID is that we're trying to grasp, like, there are no boundaries. And so we need to cross those boundaries. And we cross those boundaries by coming together. So when we're talking about that in human trafficking, the stories are heartbreaking, but we also know that they don't just happen in the city of Detroit. What happens a lot of time is they're able to attract some of these kids from the suburbs as well. But with that, tell us about your fundraiser, because at the end of the day, you're also a nonprofit trying to operate.
Absolutely. Our fundraiser, this is the second one. We did it last year and it was hugely successful. This year it's called Sound the Siren. It's this coming Saturday, January 30th at 4 p.m. Again, I thought because of the pandemic we couldn't do it, but we have a committee of dedicated folks in and around Detroit, Oakland County. I mean, these folks are so committed. They motivated me, and so we can put this together on a virtual platform. And we've done that. We've been selling tickets. I was amazed how much we raised, but again, it goes to support our analysts, because at the end of the day, we have to pay them, and there's some very, very smart people, and we have to pay for the software to go out and harvest the data. So all the funds that we raise goes directly toward our human trafficking endeavor. Again, by using that technology, you actually shortcut the investigative time frame. So you don't start with the 6 detectives hiding in the closet. You start with, here's the organization, here's where they operate, and here are some of the people that's part of the organization. That saves taxpayer dollars. So to support us, actually, you're supporting yourself. And we appreciate it, and want to say thank you to our sponsors, to our committee, to our producer, Sari Chikro. It's going to be a good event, and we hope you all want to buy tickets. You can go to our website, DetroitCrimeCommission.org, and purchase tickets, get an advance showing. We all auction items. Like I said, all of that is going to help us free somebody. Too many Americans died to free people that look like me. Now let's free other people that look like us.
I so support what you guys are doing as well. And with that, Ellis, before we let you go, because I could continue this conversation forever, because you're an amazing person. Your team really is doing a great job. But at the end of the day, though, this is about saving taxpayer dollars, which kind of also goes into, I don't understand why government agencies don't support or don't fund these organizations, but I also know the strings attached. So I get where you guys are coming from. And as someone who came from ATF, I would be so frustrated. I'm like, how many times I paid out of pocket for things for like community relations, to me, is one of the biggest issues facing some of our law enforcement agencies. And it's great to see how some of these law enforcement agencies are grasping, trying to be a person behind the badge, because we need that. We can't diversify law enforcement until we diversify the ranks.
Exactly. And one of the things, just aside from human trafficking, because I see you got the mayor right there waiting to come on, the Crime Commission has another function that we perform, and that is, if there's a city official, council member, mayor, and they want the real scoop about this industry that me and Andy been in together for about 50 years, we're not beholden to anybody. We will give you an honest assessment of what police reform looks like, what the criminal justice reform should look like, because again, we're not beholden to anybody. We'll give you the honest truth, unvarnished. And that resource is available to anybody across Southeast Michigan. They just give us a call.
So as someone who spent more than 20 years with Michigan State Police, and as an individual who I only lasted, by the way, Ellis, 3 years with ATF, and that to me was a record, because I will say it's hard for former journalists to be hired into a federal government agency, because, by the way, we like to ask questions. So when you say this is the way we do things, reporters go, why? I don't understand. can you provide me the documentation behind why you do that? So the fact that you survived more than 20 years with the Michigan State Police, but also it's great to have a conversation and to have an organization like that that is saying we are not going to operate behind the veil of law enforcement. We are going to operate in the spirit of helping the public, which is why you guys got into the industry anyway. And so with that, can I give you like a last platform though? Because we do need people and good people to go into law enforcement.
Oh, absolutely. And people who have a commitment to service. I had a young lady ask me the other day, she was talking about the marijuana laws and that the police don't like that. And I said to her, it's not up to the police if they like it or not. The law enforcement in this country is here to protect democracy. It's not a participatory sport. Our lawmakers, through their elected positions, make the laws. It is up to us and people in this industry to enforce them, not to second guess them, not to pick and choose the laws we want to enforce. No, it's a period. It's not a democracy. And if you can find young people that want to serve, that have that spirit of service, I encourage them to get in law enforcement, federal, local, state. But there are some things that we have to do as a citizenry. We have to make sure they're paid well. We have to make sure that they're compensated, that they have medical benefits. Even when they leave the job, the average life expectancy of a law enforcement officer when they leave the job is like 5 years. That's terrible. We can do better. We need to put a value on things that are important to us and act like they're important by supporting our public safety agencies through their pay, through the benefits, and a level of transparency from us to them and vice versa, so we can see what they're doing and how they're serving us.
You're listening to 89.3 WBLD Orchard Lake, 88.1 WBFH Bloomfield Hills. And when we say that too, and you say that, it's like we have to remember that there are so many people that want to make our community better, and our community only gets better by allowing these people to come in and to protect our communities. But I love what you guys are doing, because we need to continue the conversation about some of these issues and some of these roadblocks as well that are placed with the law enforcement agencies to be able to do their jobs. And I will say, I only lasted 3 months with ATF, and people keep saying, why did you? My husband every day is like, why did you leave? Right? I did very little money, very little work compared to news. By the way, I want to put that in perspective of a news agency with the federal agency and the salary as well. But at the end of the day, you want to serve people, right? I missed being able to make people, their lives better and giving them a voice. And that's what you guys are doing too at the end of your career. So we want to say thank you to the DCI Commission and for all of you guys and what you do, because one of the things in the programs that I absolutely love as well is your Blight Initiative, because if I heard it one time, I heard it 1,000 times in the city of Detroit. There are more important issues than blight. And people don't understand blight brings down the decay of a neighborhood, which ends in the violence. And so we can take care of the blight, we can take care of some of those problems as well.
That's a whole nother megacast. We've had some tremendous gains in blight, and thanks to DTE and their support, we've been able to go out and teach people in the community how to deal with blight themselves, how to bring their own lawsuit against the owner of open, vacant, and dangerous properties. In fact, we even actually help them find the owner because of our smart people that work for us.
Oh yeah, if people would follow me behind the scenes back when I was at Channel 7, and that's all I did was really go after blight violators, it was like, no, you don't understand, I don't have time for you, Short, but here's how I'm going to tell you how to track down the owner, here's what I'm going to tell you to do. And then how many times I sent emails or called those people to say, you better make this right or I'm coming after you, right? It's like,
we actually sue people.
It's the information. And you know what makes me so mad is so many times those people live in the suburbs.
Yeah.
They live outside the city of Detroit, and nothing ticks me. Don't get me started, Ellis, but I will tell you, if you want me to be a volunteer on your blight task force, and
I will remember that.
I know DTOL. I know the poor, she's now like moved up. Like when I met her, she was a lieutenant. I made her life a living hell because I'd be like, what are you doing about this? What are you doing about that?
So many issues, so many. Right?
But it really does kind of go into the bigger scheme because we wouldn't dump where we live. Exactly. Why do you do it for other people? But it's just the snowball effect of how that can lead into the violent crime that we see in the city of Detroit.
Absolutely.
So that's another conversation, and we'll continue that. But human trafficking, but also tell us again, how can people get tickets?
They can go to our website, which is www.detroitcrimecommission.org. I know, long title. And click on. There's an upcoming events tab. You can purchase tickets there. Again, it's this Saturday, 4:00. We're going to have not only a victim, sorry to say, but we also have a former pimp. A lot of similarities. He's going to talk about what not to do to save what kids shouldn't do. Parents, what you should do to make sure your kids don't get turned out. And we're going to talk a little bit about what the Crime Commission does and how we add value to this whole anti-human trafficking effort, public-private partnership to make sure we save one or two people at a time.
But that's the beautiful thing, is being able to bring people together from different voices so people understand all the assets of this issue as well. Again, thank you so much for being with us. It's great to have you with us. My
pleasure. Thank you, Ronnie.
Tell your wife, though, great job on the background.
Hopefully I'm gonna wear this in a postseason one year.
Oh my God. I mean, is this year? No, you know what? Just like 2020 with the vaccine, it's a new year and new hope for the Detroit Lions.
Hope springs eternal.
Ellis, great to have you with us, and our apologies to our next guest. The mayor of Troy will be with you in just a second after this break.
Perry tested positive for COVID-19. Emma was exposed to a friend who's positive. Willa's waiting on test results. After any contact with COVID-19, or if you test positive, stay home for at least 10 days. If you live with others, keep your distance and wear a mask. Help Michigan contain COVID-19. Visit michigan.gov/containcovid.
COVID-19 has caused many families to fall behind on finances and on groceries. But you're not alone. You shouldn't have to worry about putting food on the table. My Bridges offers access to quality food and income assistance to help families across the state get the food support they need. It's easy to apply and easy to start shopping. Apply for services at michigan.gov/MIBridges. A message from the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services.
So great to have you with us here on the Megacast. I'm Ronnie Dahl here in my home studios while Mr. Tyler holds things down back at West Bloomfield. Our apologies again to our next guest because we're running a little bit behind, but it was the first time we had the Detroit Crime Commission on the show, and we really wanted people to understand that while you hear Detroit Crime Commission, that is not the city that they just focus on. They focus on Metro Detroit as well as the state of Michigan, and we can all benefit from their efforts that they are doing. And with us right now, one of our favorite friends, though, always great to have you with us on, Ethan Baker. He is the mayor for the city of Detroit. Thank you for being with us.
Mayor of Troy, Ronnie. Mayor of Troy, not Detroit. You just said
Detroit. I'm sorry. Oh my God. I will tell you, Ethan, you're much happier if you're on the back end of a conversation I'm having with you as the mayor of Troy than the mayor of Detroit.
I agree. I agree. But I gotta say, I'm happy to be a little late to start because Ellis is a great guest, and the Detroit Crime Commission. I mean, what they do for our region as a whole is amazing. And you heard him talk a little bit about even their involvement in some issues in Troy as it related to massage parlor, and they knew about it a secondary place that the Troy PD didn't even know at the time. So I mean, fantastic guest. Happy to start a little late because of someone like him. So
well, it's great to have you. Can I tell you a secret?
Sure, I'm looking forward.
So I've never met you in person, but I think you're tall, right?
I'm like 6'1". Yeah, I'm 6'1".
Okay, I'm 5'11" and a half.
Oh.
And so I'm probably going to make people not so happy, but I'm going to tell you a little secret about what I used to do is Mayor Duggan and I, when I was at Channel 7, we used to have some issues, not issues. I always respect our elected leaders. However, I question him a lot. And so he liked to call my bosses at the end of every day and complain about me. Well, I didn't like that. So what I would do is when I knew I was going to have an interview with him, I'm already 5'11" and a half.
I know where you're going with this, Ronnie.
I would wear heels. So I would be like 6'3" when I would interview Mayor Duggan. I'm like, okay.
Yeah, you know what? Whatever it takes. Tells you the media is playing a bigger role in our information than people realize. Just by that story right there, see that power position that you were putting yourself in. I got to tell you, I struggle. You're 5'11". My daughter, who's 14, just turned 14. She's already 5'8", which feels really tall when I'm used to it. When I still think of her as a little baby. So I mean, but it's I think tall girls are great. Own it. I hope you own your height because not everybody does.
Look, you are what you are. People are like, how tall are you? And I refuse to say I'm 6 feet. So I say I'm 5'11" and a half. But I will say I love how you transition that conversation as well away from politics with Mayor Duggan. Trust me, he understands. This is no secret. In the
you know what? Listen, actually, I will say all respect to Mayor of Detroit. That's not an easy mayor to be. I feel like in many ways I have Detroit's a much different city, obviously, but when you're out in the arena and you're dealing with a city with as many issues, good and bad, as the city of Detroit does, I cut a lot of slack to Mayor Duggan. So I'll give him that for sure. And we appreciate all public servants because we know how hard it is. It's hard work. I mean, you know that. Even all the people you've seen and interviewed and questioned, you said before, you have a lot of respect for the elected officials. But it's one that's willing to at least answer the questions, I think, are the good ones. So
I will say, right, 100%, 100%. And I would never be able to run for office because I don't have the patience that it requires for people such as yourself and others in elected office, because I really do think that people don't grasp in today's society the impact that it has not just on you, but also your family members as well. And while they see the face of politics, they don't understand what goes into politics as well. But there really is a huge sacrifice. And you do it and other people do it out of the spirit of trying to help their communities and make their communities better. And we appreciate that. What we don't appreciate is some governments that don't have the lack of transparency, because I will say today, in today's day and age, it's okay to say, hey, I screwed up, or this was my decision making. And I think that's really even more so what your constituents are looking for. They want people to understand that you're real. You're not a politician, you're just one of us.
Well, sure. And I think that some of our best leaders over the generations have been the ones that show a human side, and that human side often shows, mistakes and some fault. And yet, we don't want our leaders to be constantly making mistakes or constantly talking about what a bad job they're doing. So there is a balancing act. I appreciate you mentioning family and the sacrifice for them. And obviously my wife and I, we look very serious. I have 3 young kids. My oldest is 14, my youngest is 9. And so they've been kind of going through, my 9-year-old doesn't really, she was 4 when I got elected to city council. So she really doesn't know any different, but there's a lot of good that can come from that, because you can open them up to ways of service and just opening their eyes to a lot of different things. But my 14-year-old now, she's getting involved in social media, and, sometimes people write not nice things on Twitter about me, as they do all of us, right? And so that's a tough thing too. Trying to control all that can be really tough.
And what you have to teach her, don't read the comments, right?
Oh, listen, Ronnie, I had an op-ed run in the Washington Post yesterday, and which is fantastic, great for the city of Troy, but the comments are brutal. I mean, like that's just, and comments are brutal on all of the op-eds because people comment, they tend to comment with the negativity, right? So yeah, I told my wife, I said, Bethany, don't read the comments. I mean, you know, we're pretty thick-skinned, you have to be, but still it's like time and time again. And then my favorite is one of the comments said, well, I think we should print all these comments and mail them to the mayor. And I wanted to write back, don't worry, guys. I see them right here. I appreciate it. You know, like, but anyway, sorry, we're getting off track a little bit. But
I know, but you didn't take your advice. I'm not.
I didn't take my own advice. Well, of course not. Of course not. No. I mean, listen. The thing is, even in the negative comments, some are unfounded. Some have some really good points, and they open up your mind to a different perspective. And being, I think, a good, elected official and public servant is about listening to not just your own choir and your own, bubble, but people outside who may have a very divergent and very negative or cynical opinion. But there's always something you can glean from that, I think, that makes you a better leader and makes you look at things in a different way, even if your ultimate position doesn't change. But listen, I don't like it. No one likes to have, insults hurled at them. I don't know how these national leaders, frankly, deal with it. When I think about whether it's the president or some of the more famous senators, they're just taking heat nonstop online. And, they bring a lot of it on themselves, obviously, but it's tough. It's a weird world we live in, and we kind of need to recognize that this is what we have, and this is the system we're in. Social media is not going anywhere. People's opinions aren't going anywhere. So we're going to have to learn to kind of coexist with some of that. But we'll see. Meanwhile, keep my kids from looking too much. It can be traumatic.
But the beautiful thing with that is there is a lesson in there as well. And our elected leaders survive because they don't read the comments. They have aides that do that for them. But on the backside of that, it's just what you said. I mean, there's a difference between being like offering advice, but just being negative. When people, I will tell you, as someone who's been a member of the media, I don't know how many times, like, I don't know if you notice, well, you don't, because you're only seeing me, but I'm not a size 0. I'm not your typical broadcast media person. I've been called a transvestite. I've been called a man. I've been called fat. I've been called so many things. And the thing that you learn from those situations is you appreciate the freedom of speech. And I love the freedom of speech. And sometimes when I'm bothered to respond to people like that, because it bugs you, right? I mean, you're a chick and they're calling you a transvestite because you're chasing down illegal dumpers or illegal scrappers. How about brave, courageous?
Right. Right? I mean, like, I could think of a lot better adjectives, frankly. I mean, like, absolutely. How about kick ass? Can I say that? I mean, I don't know, like, right? I mean, that's awesome. That's great stuff.
But the beautiful thing of that is I look at these people, and at first I was so offended, but my husband taught me something. He goes, I don't look at the comments or I don't read the reviews, because then I'm giving the person positive or negative. That's his big thing. He's like, you got to give the same weight to people who are saying positive things to you. And this is, really a testament to our elected leaders too. You can't just surround yourself with yes people. You need some of those negative comments to put you on a right track, or at least open your mind to different situations or thoughts. But it's when you get mean about things, or you attack people personally, or their kids or their family members, that's when you lose your power. And I remember responding to a guy who made some negative things about me. How is she even on air? Something like that. And I was like, you do realize your kids are reading this, because I'm really good at cyber stalking, by the way. Just to let anyone know, if you're going to follow me and you're going to post stuff about me, I'm really good at cyber stalking. I'm an investigative journalist. I'm really good, who also used to work for a federal law enforcement agency. I'm really good. So it's more about what you're saying about yourself and the message you're sending to the people that know you than what you're saying about me. And is that the message that you want to give to your kids or to the people that you love about who you are as a person? And I think that's what we need to remember in these situations. But also, like you just said, you also learned from them as well. It's just cutting through the noise.
It is. And recognizing that too, whenever I write back, if I write back something too quickly, it's there forever now. And that's a scary thing. And trying to teach kids that, I think, is really, really important. But, I do love the lessons you get from it. And I've had some constructive comments actually that I have taken to heart and really been able to and have a little bit of a dialogue. And that's the hard thing for me is, as a city politician, and we're out there door knocking campaigns and all that. I love the one-on-one interaction with people. So I wish I could go to all of these hundreds of comments on Twitter and talk to each of these people specifically, because I think we could probably see eye to eye on some things that would make things a little better. But neither of us have the time to do that. And so you kind of, it's unfortunate to see things just kind of to go out there and there they stay and you move on. I mean, the other good aspect of it is news moves so fast these days that what people are talking about, at the beginning of the segment, they're no longer talking about, right? So that helps a little bit, but it's an amazing country we live in with the things we're allowed to say and the ability we have to get our words out there. But it also is, it can be tough for all of us on every level. And I mean, from across political spectrums, across all kinds of diverse aspects. It's hard for people.
But I can imagine doing it as an elected leader with kids as well. So with that though, tell us about the city of Troy. What's new? Tell us about your op-ed.
Well, I mean, Troy is, we're very, very fortunate that we are, we had some good infrastructure in place prior to COVID because we, as a city, we're doing pretty well financially through it. Obviously, my biggest concern now is our small businesses, whether that's retail or these restaurants. We're very excited that we get to have in-person dining again, February 1st. I'm a little concerned, and I don't want to make it political. I understand I don't have access to all the numbers that Lansing has and everything, but 25% capacity is really difficult for some of our smaller, little more mom and pop restaurants because it doesn't make sense for them to open. They can't do it. So they're going to continue to struggle. And, I can't wait, like everybody else, to get things going back to a little more normal with our economy and our businesses. We have so many, our office buildings in Troy, we're known as a kind of that central Oakland County office place in many sense. We have such great services, and they're still empty, right? And so that has and I've talked about this before, I think we do, but it has a cascading effect on our restaurants and our retail and all the little businesses that depend so much on the extra 100,000 people coming into our city each day to use them. So the sooner we can get people back in office buildings, obviously safely, the sooner we can get things more open a little bit, we're all going to be so much better off. But it's an understatement, obviously.
Right. And Ethan, as the mayor of Troy and such, the city and the dynamics, that is one thing that we are realizing. Every city and every community has a different dynamic. And with that, when we could talk about the vaccine, how hopeful are you that this vaccine at some point in time will bring a sense of normalcy back to your community and bring the people back to the office buildings? Because now, on top of everything, we have the vaccine, but we also have a variant.
Right. Well, listen, I mean, I think at this point, your opinions on vaccines or not, it's our best hope of getting back to some normalcy here in the city of Troy and throughout. I mean, and on two fronts. One, obviously, we'll move toward herd immunity, which I think is really important, but also there's a psychological factor to it too, where people they're not going to feel safe and feel like they can go out and do the things they normally would do until they have that vaccine. So that double combination, I think, is what's going to make the big difference. We hear all about the lack of vaccines. Oakland County, I think I saw a chart that showed Oakland County is actually ahead of the game in compared to many counties throughout the state. But we're still struggling to get some first responders vaccinated, even though they're supposed to be first, right? I mean, there's just a lack of supply, and hopefully that moves a little faster and we can get things going. It's really fascinating for me to see, or on social media, or to hear from somebody when they get their first vaccine shot, how excited they are, right? I mean, that really is, you hear and see relief in their voice and I think that's a great positive aspect of all of this, to bring some of that hope back. And you can see how quickly people can have that relief and that joy, which will get them back in the restaurants, we'll get them back out in our community. And we're like everybody else, just waiting as best we can for that normalcy to come. And the vaccine is our best hope at this point.
So, Mr. Mayor, we can ask you too, because as someone who is the mayor of a city such as yours, you come from a very diverse city. How do you help relay that relay that message that this vaccine is safe and people should be getting it when there are so many different conversations going on right now about the vaccine, or is that really your place, and are you leaving it to the state health department?
You know, it's interesting. So City of Troy doesn't have a public health department. We don't actually play a role in public health. All of our public health issues are at the county level. And so we've been working very closely with Oakland County to get their messaging out to help spread the word. I mean, we do have a lot of diversity in the city of Troy, and that includes a lot of, religious diversity. And there are some religions and cultures who have a moral objection to certain vaccines, right? We hear about that. So we've got a job to educate as best we can and to give them the facts. And listen, we're not forcing anybody to take a vaccine, but we want to provide all the information we can. Fortunately, this isn't city specific or even region specific, it's global. So there's resources and information out there at all levels. And so just because, maybe they're not moved by somebody here in the local area who's gotten the vaccine, they may see somebody, nationally who got the vaccine, and that's going to tell them it's okay, it's safe. But I do know Oakland County is working very hard to have their system out there. It's important that we get our senior citizens vaccinated. It's important that we get our first responders, our teachers. I mean, we've got to get our schools back open, and we see more people in person now, but that's a big part of it. When you have teachers who maybe they're willing to go in and teach in person, but they've come into contact with somebody who has COVID, and they have to quarantine. That system doesn't work. So the only way to make that work is to get them vaccinated, and so they don't have to go home for 14 days and quarantine. So we've got to get the word out there to the cultures. We've got a lot of help. Our state representative and our state senator, they've been very active in promoting the messages that we need. Congresswoman Haley Stevens, our federal representative, has been very, very vocal about it. We've got a good team of communicators, I think, representing the city of Troy right now, which are helping reach a lot of different sects of the diverse population. So I feel good about that. Anything I can do, I'm happy to do more of, because I think it's important that the information is out there for people.
There really are so many facets to this conversation to try to get us back to where we once were, and how we would all appreciate that as well. We appreciate the things we don't have. And it's just the simplest things. And with that, Ethan Baker with us here on the Megacast. He's the mayor for the city of Troy. I know we got off to kind of a side start to this conversation, but maybe anything I didn't ask you that you do want to touch on before we let you go.
No, I think if I could just to follow up on your last interview with Ellis, we're talking at the end about the value of law enforcement and how we want good people in law enforcement, and how most people are, and how a community depends on that. We struggle. We're a city that provides good benefits and good pay to our police officers, and yet we've got vacancies right now that we're having a hard time filling because of the national move, and a lot of people just got retirements happening earlier than expected because it's hard to be a police officer today. You can be the best, most wonderful police officer in the world, but someone sees you in that badge and that blue. And, I've watched it. I pulled out of our Civic Center area in Troy. This was a few months ago. And I saw, there was a cop in front of me. And someone turned around and was turning onto the street, and, they just randomly flipped off the cop car, because that was that's how they felt. And I thought, that's so unfair. That cop is sitting there in that car, and they're internalizing that, whether or not they want to admit it or not, but that weighs on you. And so we always need to be talking about criminal justice reform and what we need to do to have better policing in our communities. And we're always open to that conversation here in Troy. And we've talked a little bit about that in the past, but we'll continue to be on the front line of what we can do. But we also have to recognize human aspects of our policemen and women, and how hard they're working to keep our communities safe, and what they're doing and what they're sacrificing for us every single day. And if that mood can just get a little bit better, I think we'll have a better recruitment aspect. Law enforcement, they're there to enforce the laws, right? As Ellis said, and I think they don't get to pick and choose which laws they like or don't like. They're there to protect us and take care of what they need to in our community, no matter what. So I have a big plea for, people to recognize the fundamental issues that do exist as a whole in the country, but also recognize your local police community. Odds are your city is as successful as it is because of the work they're doing. I certainly feel that way about the city of Troy, and I'll stand and applaud the Troy Police Department any day of the week.
And I will say it's easy for so many people to sit in judgment of our law enforcement officers when they are on the outside. As someone who had to go through a criminal background check just to get a top security clearance check,
yeah,
is amazing. But I was just as a civilian going through that. I couldn't imagine what these law enforcement agencies that are going, or officers are going through to not only get that clearance, but also to live on the streets each and every day and to do what they're doing. And so we do say that this is a community problem and a law enforcement problem, and we don't fix it, and we don't have these conversations, and we don't work together. But we also appreciate having people such as yourself, an elected leader that's willing to address these conversations, but also to lead our country, but also the city of Troy. Because I will tell you, somehow, I don't know how this happened, I seem to have lost my Ugg slippers. They are my favorite. I'm telling you, if any guy out there, if you want to make your wife happy coming up for this Valentine's Day, get her some Ugg slippers. So I lost my Ugg slippers. You go to Somerset. It's our favorite place there in the city of Troy. It was packed. So there is still good news, and people seem to still be shopping in the city of Troy.
You know, only you, Ronnie, could take it from police issues and reform to Somerset. And you do it every time. So I got to hand it to you. Well done. I was wondering how you were going to work it in the time we had left, but no, you're absolutely right. Ugg slippers they're a great gift, number one, especially this time of year. But number two, Somerset's thriving. It continues to thrive, and they've taken great precautions to make sure you're having a safe experience. And, you know, but it always depends on not just the stores and the Somerset as a whole, but us as individuals. You know, we've got to be willing to deal with the temporary restrictions we have on there. We've got to wear our masks. We've got to sanitize. We've got to keep the social distance lines. And we've got to be prepared to wait outside of our favorite store sometimes, because those are the rules that are put in place, and we have to follow them. And if we want to keep Somerset open for all of us, we've got to follow those rules in the meantime. So.
It's about supporting our local stores, our local malls, because we need people to continue to be employed throughout this pandemic. Because while we have hope and we think we're on the backside, we're still a long way from getting back to where we once were.
That's right. That's right.
Well, Mr. Mayor, thank you so much for your time. It's great having you with us, and thank you for putting up with me as well.
Always a pleasure, Ronnie. Thank you. I appreciate it. I'll come back anytime.
And if I can find my slippers, they were sold out. So
on top of it, I'm sorry to hear that. Well,
I took over my husband's though, yeah. But his are way too big, and I'm shuffling through, and they're not cute. They're brown. Mine are pink.
Oh, Ronnie. All right.
You're like, where do I leave that conversation?
All right. This is a hard news segment. I see. All right.
Hey, with that, we're going to take a quick break here on the Oakland County Megacast. When we come back, Dan Brown is going to be with us. He, though, sadly, is one of those businesses fighting to survive during this pandemic. This is the Oakland County Megacast.
Michigan, we're calling on you to save lives. Don't ignore it. Don't let it go to voicemail. It's urgent. In fact, it's critical. Because if you've been in close contact with someone who tests positive for COVID-19, you may have been exposed to the virus. And you could get a call from My COVID Help or your local health department. So please answer the call to learn how to protect yourself, your family, and friends. We're calling on you to stop the spread of COVID-19, to make it safe to reopen businesses and help Michigan move forward. So if you get a call from My COVID Help or your local health department, you may have been exposed to someone with COVID-19. To protect us all, answer the call. Learn more at michigan.gov/contain-COVID. A message from the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services.
Thank you for being with us on the Megacast. We want to say thank you to the mayor for allowing us a little bit of extra time. I know we're running behind as we get to our next guest, but we have to extend our gratitude for Dan Brown for being with us here on the Megacast and to hanging with us as well. But you're the president of Skate-More, but I would imagine when I say hanging with us, that's exactly what you and so many others in your industry have been doing since the beginning of this pandemic is just hanging in and hanging on and trying to survive to the next day.
It's very true. We're hanging on by toenails, fingernails, and anything we can grasp. We're trying to hang on. You're correct.
But with that, give us a little bit of background before we get into the lawsuit. Tell us more about your business, but also the history of your business as well.
We'll certainly appreciate the opportunity. And first of all, I'm happy to be here with you and all your viewers. You mentioned the President Skate More, but our facility is better known to be Rollhaven Skating Center. Rollhaven Skating Center or Rollhaven Skating Arena is a roller skating rink up in Grand Blanc. And it has been a business and a part of the community for 65 years come this December. And myself and my wife have been owners and operators of that facility since 1990. So we're going to 31 years of providing roller skating and family entertainment and a place for families to have celebrations and physical activity and skate and have camaraderie and community and the whole bit. So that's we take great pride in our ability to give back to the community and be a part of the community as a faithful and diligent partner.
So pre-COVID, I would imagine, has your industry gone through changes in general? Because I remember I used to have these gold sparkled ice skates or roller skates, and I had big pom-poms on them, but then everyone went to roller skates, right? The inline skating, and that was the hip thing. So your industry has already been through challenges, just as the community and society has changed. But how has this last curveball hit your industry?
Well, you're right on. I mean, through the history, there's been numerous changes in the industry in that, and just mostly from a perception and participation level. You mentioned your gold glittery skates with the pom-poms, and for sure that was the disco era and some of the heydays and some of the high points of the industry. And every time you turned a corner, there was a roller skating rink. And then shortly after the disco died, if you will, the skating kind of went downhill a bit from a participation level. But then rollerblades came back, or inline skates came in, and that created a whole new vibe to skating. And now we get a great mix of both traditional quad skating and inline skaters and people who have both kinds of skates. And so you have a mix of both. But the one thing that stays true in all of that, inside the skating rinks, it's a great, wholesome, family, engaging, involving sport and entertainment for the family. And it's something they all can do, from the youngest child in the family to mom and dad, and even mamas and grandmas and grandpas, because we still have grandmas and grandpas skating with us through many generations of skaters. And this last one.
The grandmas and grandpas are probably like some of the best skaters, right? Because I'm still struggling with skating backwards, other than doing like the little,
the scissors.
I don't even know what yes. So they're probably teaching their grandkids really how to cut it up out there on the rink, right?
Absolutely. They love doing that. And the mom and grandmas and grandpas are certainly, they kind of grew up with skating as being one of the only things they could do other than going to the movie or drive in and that thing in those days. But skating has always been a part of their life, and they get to, from a tradition standpoint, get to transfer that knowledge and experience onto the grandkids. And it's quite fun. Yeah.
Dan, with that, it's also great exercise. I will say, every time, the last few times I've been roller skating, I'm huffing and puffing. You forget, as you get older. But with that though, Dan, if we could jump into the lawsuit and survival mode. You're in survival mode right now.
Well, absolutely. And not just me, that every skating rink across the country, and particularly in Michigan here, we have some of their, for just our personal experiences that just recently as last year, we had 2 skating centers that we owned and operated. We now are down to 1. We've lost 1 in the community, and it was been there, a roller skating rink in Owasso that was there for over 30 some odd years. In fact, I think it's about 45 years now. I believe that facility was there, but we've owned it for a number of years, and then we had to close that facility just to kind of keep things going with our primary facility in Grand Blanc. So we've already lost that, and I still carry on that debt from that facility and carrying that over into the existing business. And it's been a very difficult year. And if we don't get some kind of help or some kind of subsistence in some way that isn't a loan, I mean, loans are great, and we've got those. We've added tremendous amount of money to our to our debt, I should say. Every rink in Michigan has. We've taken on hundreds of thousands of dollars in additional debt just to continue in our industry, and we need some help. But the lawsuit is a little different take on. We're not suggesting in our lawsuit that the governor or the DHSS is wrong. We're not challenging their orders. We just have a different perspective. We want to force some kind of help that sustains our industry and takes care of us and our industry to keep us going.
I will say, looking at this lawsuit versus some of the other ones that have been filed throughout this pandemic, this is a very interesting argument. How successful do you think you will be?
Well, you know, the courts will certainly ultimately to decide on that. And I guess for the viewers who are not really familiar with the differences of what our lawsuit about, many of the lawsuits that have been filed with the state or against the state, I should say, regarding the direction was that they were challenging the validity or the constitutionality of the decision to close or to temporary close or take actions against certain industries. That our lawsuit is not about that. Again, as I mentioned, we're not trying to challenge their decisions. We are not experts in the field. We have our own opinions about what is right and what is just, but that's not the case in this lawsuit. Our lawsuit is, okay, fine. You've identified, government, you have decided that our industry, us and bowling into centers and some of the other ones, family entertainment centers, are an industry that is a hinge pin or a real important point to to regulate or to close down in order to stop the spread of this pandemic and this virus. So with that concept, okay, we will concede, okay, if that's what you feel, that's fine. But you are also denying our ability to earn a living, which is given to us under the 14th Amendment. We as a society, as a member of the United States, as a citizen of the United States, we have a right to earn a just living. And they are taking that away from us, literally taking away the opportunity. And therein lies the basis of our lawsuit. Yes, you can have the authority to close this down if you choose to, but it's much like in this, because they're doing this for the public good. So much like a piece of property, if they take our personal, say, property, a physical property, for the public good, they have to fairly compensate you under the takings law, under the takings decisions that has been held up for many years. They have to just compensate the owners of that property. We contend that by denying us our opportunity to earn a living, they're taking away our ability to earn a living and therefore taking our property. And we want fair and just compensation for that taking. That is the basis of our lawsuit.
It really is a compelling lawsuit. Dan Brown with us here on the Megacast, and we should mention that you are not only involved in this lawsuit, but it's also some of the bowling alleys across the state as well, because while certain entities have been allowed to reopen, it's at limited capacities and with so many restrictions too that many people feel as if they are not able to actually reopen. And with that, Dan, just another minute with you. Can you talk about the impact that this has had personally on you and your family members?
Well, as I mentioned, I've already lost one business in this as the fallout of this pandemic, and we have taken, and now just to keep us going for this 1 year, we have now taken on another $500,000 in debt just to continue and then to upgrade and to put in filtration systems and to clean and to sanitize and to set up processes and policies and physical changes in our facilities just so we can then survive within the pandemic. And then, and so a lot of that money was spent doing that stuff and just to survive, and then we're denied the opportunity to open. So I have we're going down, me and many other skating centers as well as bowling centers lost their entire life savings this last year, just trying to keep their business surviving and alive. And people would say, well, you make all this money, you should be able to. Well, that's not the case.
It really is. And, you know, when you look at what so many people, like we see the numbers, but there are real people behind these numbers. And you're one of those people. You have a compelling argument. The lawsuit has a compelling argument. It's very different than the other ones that we've seen throughout this pandemic that they have not been successful. But we are wishing you and your team the best of luck. What's next in the lawsuit, by the way?
Well, right now it's been filed in federal court. They will, of course, determine whether or not it'll be heard. And of course, they will take at some point, entertain argument from both sides. And for that point, it would just move forward. If we'll get the first decision, and if it doesn't go our way, we have opportunities to appeal a little higher. But, you know, it's going to have to take the road. We truly believe that's probably going to take us into the Supreme Court in order to get to the final decision on this, because unfortunately, many of the courts that lead up and that we will be arguing in the beginning are elected officials, not suggesting that they are not fair in their litigation when they are in an elected position. But it's difficult because then you got to weigh the political side of that. They have to weigh the political side of the decisions. And that's difficult. We need to get to the law. The law, we believe, is very clear in this taking of a property. And it's not as simple as just land or dirt or a building. It is also about property, and a business is property. And they've taken that away from us, as well as many other businesses. And it will, I'm sure it will be precedent setting. It will be impactful for all states. I think that the state has to be very serious about considering our lawsuit and consider its impact and be fair.
Well, Dan, we so appreciate your time, and you're exactly right when you say that this could set a precedent. And I think so many people outside of the state of Michigan will be watching how this lawsuit unfolds. But in the meantime, we do wish you, as well as your company, the best, and we hope you do survive, because we need people like you and businesses like yours as well. And because sometime I'm going to find those gold roller skates and I'm going to come back and I'm going to take you on. Maybe you can teach me to skate backwards.
Absolutely can do that, and I'll do it. You'll do it with flair and style with those gold colored roller skates, and you'll look good doing it as well.
Flair and style, Dan. I like that. Thank you for being with us.
Well, thank you for the opportunity to talk about it. You know, because we're so many of our employees that we've lost some because of this, and love to get some of these people back to work in a diligent way. We're just so hamstrung right now. We just can't seem to operate well.
We hope
you.
so as well. We're going to take a quick break here on the Megacast.
COVID-19 has caused many families to fall behind on finances and on groceries. But you're not alone. You shouldn't have to worry about putting food on the table. MyBridges offers access to quality food and income assistance to help families across the state get the food support they need. It's easy to apply and easy to start shopping. Apply for services at michigan.gov/MIBridges. A message from the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services.
Hey, great to have you with us here on the Megacast. You can always catch us Civic Center TV, Birmingham Area Municipal Access, 89.3 Lakes FM, 88.1 FM The Biff. If you're at home, Channel 15 Comcast, Channel 99 on AT&T. Just about 5 minutes here left in the show. We need to leave you a little bit early, but before we go, we want to bring in our good friend, Joe Bauman. He is the president for the Birmingham Bloomfield Chamber of Commerce. Joe, great to have you with us, but I'm kind of missing your old background.
Well, you know, in the world of COVID, we have to do everything we can to try to bring visibility to our sponsors and supporters of the chamber. So
absolutely 100%. We support that as well. And with that, what is new with the chamber there where you are?
So, you know, we're all waiting for February 1st to see if other restrictions are going to be loosened or lifted, in addition to the much anticipated return of indoor dining for restaurants. I do want to mention that for now until I believe February 5th, it is Restaurant Week in Birmingham. And so right now they're doing it with curbside and carry-out specials. Go visit your favorite restaurant and do that. And then hopefully starting next Monday, there'll be some limited in restaurant dining. I thought it was interesting, your previous guest who you just had on, very frustrating situation for many businesses. Not only that, but you know, we have in our membership event spaces that have been closed since March, entertainment venues. And so it's a very tricky situation. And one of the things that we're doing to advocate on behalf of our members with our state legislators is how is the state of Michigan ultimately going to be able to reimburse these businesses that through no fault of their own followed the governor's rules, followed the state health department rules, closed down, forfeited their business. They do need to be compensated for that action because it wasn't their fault. And they did what they were asked to do and we were supposed to do. So that's kind of what we're starting to look forward already and saying, okay, once we get vaccinated and once we have herd immunity, how are we going to compensate these businesses for all of the lost income they suffered because of it?
Yeah, the future conversation on this is going to be very interesting because of what you just said in our previous guest. Eminent domain, I had never thought of that argument before, but in the meantime, before we can get there, we are where we are. And so we know that so many of these businesses, we are focusing on so much on restaurants and bars, but we do know there are other businesses as well. What's happening there in Birmingham to help these businesses other than Restaurant Week? Which, by the way, I will say, I didn't know what to make for dinner. So you just gave me a suggestion. I'm ordering out.
There you go. You know, we continue to promote the the Shop Local, Shop Small campaign. Many of our retailers have adopted much more efficient online stores to do the shopping in their stores. Unfortunately, you know, Birmingham especially is usually a buzz of activity in terms of events, outdoor events, indoor events. We were supposed to have Winter Market earlier this month that obviously had to be canceled. So the challenge is how do you encourage people to continue to come downtown when aside from the actual stores, there's not a lot else going on. So it's tough. I mean, there's no way to sugarcoat it. This has been a very difficult fall. It's going to be and continue to be a very difficult winter, but we all just have to redouble our efforts to support the businesses that have supported us over the years.
And what's so hard right now, I feel like not only are people experiencing pandemic fatigue, but also that shop local seems to have gone by the wayside as well.
You know, it had great traction over the holidays because people obviously are focused on that. But yeah, you get into January and, you know, the weather obviously today is not real great. It's colder, it's snowier, so it's a little tougher to try to draw people to an outdoor environment, for sure. You know, our restaurants have been so fortunate that we've had a mild winter so far that, you know, their outdoor dining has been doing great. And I mean, so much flexibility and adaptation by restaurants to do that has been quite amazing. But it's the other places that, you know, there's a whole hidden layer that people don't realize of people impacted. You know, dry cleaners are having a horrible time of it because nobody's going to work, so nobody's getting their clothes dry cleaned. Florists, people are buying flowers personally, but a lot of businesses, order flowers for their reception areas in their offices. That's all gone. So there are so many layers to this that it's going to take some time to really sit back and analyze the impact of this pandemic. I will say, and we do seem to be fixated on restaurants because I think everybody loves going out to eat. The Michigan Restaurant Association put out a bulletin yesterday that said 3,000 restaurants in the state of Michigan have already closed permanently. So that's a barometer for what might come in the spring.
And that really is a sad statistic for us to leave on, but it's also a great reminder for us to support our local businesses, not just the restaurants, but as you mentioned, your dry cleaners, as well as your flower shops and so many other businesses in our own neighborhoods because they shape our neighborhoods. That's going to wrap it up for the Tuesday edition of the Megacast.